Hi, Anthony. How are you?
Hi Tom,
How are things?
doing well, doing well. So
Good man. Nice to see you.
wait, we're actually just checking the feed. So you will find also in my page. I mean, I'm not sure if you're a Facebook friend. We're just
I might be. I generally don't use Facebook. Um,
yeah, we're just checking the feed from Facebook. So we're just checking the audio. So
Fantastic.
for our Zoom participants, so obviously you can hear me, no? So Tom and I are now talking, so everything's clear when it comes to the audio, right? Thumbs up na lang si Miss Garcia. Okay, so some of my students are here. So, okay. So, we're just finalizing some items. Doc
Okay,
Remon,
you.
uh,
Yes, hello, good
Doc
evening,
Remon, I just
everyone.
wanted to introduce you to Tom. So we're doing it in public.
No, no worries. Hello, Tom.
Hi. Hello, Ron.
Thank you for joining
Tom is
us.
the editor-in-chief of Parallax.
And Tom, where are you right now?
Currently in Singapore.
Oh, okay, not too far from us.
Not too far. Not too far. I will actually be in Manila at the end of uh,
Oh,
August.
Ah,
judging.
oh,
So,
will be
so
great.
hopefully I'll get a moment to maybe meet people in person.
Yeah, that will be great. Something to look forward to.
I think
It's been a long, long time since I've been to Manila.
Okay.
the last time I met Tom was when was that? Tom, was that last year when I was still with Walaika? So
Oh yeah, that was easily a year or more ago. Easily.
yeah, yeah. And also Doc Ramon, Tom and Parallax and Charlene were partners of Photography Chismis for
Ah,
the
okay. Okay.
so yeah, we did a grant
Mhm,
program. So we did a grant program.
mhm.
So
Yeah, it's awesome. Nice to be back collaborating with you, and yeah, I look forward to having a little chat about what we do in 2027 and enjoying your
yes,
programming for the rest of the year.
I think Parallax has been busy as well. So you had several partnerships with other groups, so we saw it on your page.
Yeah, we're trying to do that, in between the reality of you know living your life. We're trying to find time to do these kind of little collaborations and so forth. So trying to make the most of them.
So it's 6:01, so we'll just maybe give 5 more minutes. So we'll just populate the feed. And also there's just to remind, no, for our speakers, our guests. So we're running the program simultaneous in Zoom and also in Facebook. So if you go to Photography Chismis page, so uh they are helping us. So basically they're hosting the technical aspect of this program. So when you go to Photography Chismis page, you'll see the live feed there, the live stream. And if you're a friend of mine in Facebook, you can also go to my page. The feed is available there as well. So maybe let's just wait for another 3 minutes or 4 minutes.
We made a mistake, Tony pala, for the time now. It's 12 noon. It's just 6 hours difference now. I think it's summertime in Central. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Let me. I
Yeah.
think I was able to change that. So let me change that.
So that's 12 p.m. Yeah. Good. Yeah. 6 hours. I didn't notice myself.
Yeah. Tom, I would also like to introduce Stephanie Tomampos, one of our co-founders. So she's based in Munich.
Hi, Stephanie.
Hello, can everyone hear me? Hello?
Yes. Hello.
Okay, perfect. Sorry, I just have problems with my audio today. But hi, Tom. Nice meeting you here.
Hi. My sister actually lives in Munich at the moment.
Oh,
So,
really?
Oh, wow.
Nice. What a
and
coincidence.
again, it's a long, long time that last time I was in Munich was 22 years ago.
Oh.
Well,
But
I guess it's time.
nice place to live.
Yeah, I guess it's time for a visit then.
Might have to happen. It might have to.
I'll try. Can you hear me better in this audio? No. Okay,
That's
cool.
okay.
I'm switching audio from my screen and my laptop, and it's a bit weird. When you're on Linux, I'm on Linux. That's why.
Mm. So again, good evening, everyone. We'll just wait a few more minutes before we start. So thank you for joining us tonight. So this is Philosophy of Photography, and the series specifically entitled Everyday Photography. Okay. So okay, so let's start. So greetings from the Philosophy of Photography Club. My name is Anthony Cuesta. Tonight we are kicking off our Everyday Photography series with a session entitled What Wounds Us, Vivian Maier, through the lens of Simone Weil and Roland Barthes. We are delighted to have you with us this evening. We would like to recognize the photograph that we use for the cover of our recommendations. This photo has been duly licensed from Mr. Christian Babista. We thank Mr. Babista for allowing us to use this image for the project. Before we begin, the session will be recorded via Zoom. You will be prompted to provide your consent for the recording. We thank Red Dot Committee PH and Photography Chismis PH for hosting this event. The session is also being streamed live through Facebook. The recording will be uploaded to Photography Chismis and its platforms, including Facebook, YouTube, and Spotify for educational purposes, with the aim of contributing to the discourse of photography in the Philippines. Any knowledge derived from this program should be properly cited in accordance with the applicable intellectual property laws and conventions in the Philippines. Kindly keep your microphones muted during the presentation. A moderated question and answer session will follow later in the program. Also, just a reminder for our fair use policy. So this online event is conducted for educational use, not for profit, and is distributed free of charge. Under sections 184 and 185 of the Intellectual Property Code of the Philippines of 1997, allowance is made for fair use for purposes such as criticism, news, reporting, teaching, scholarship, education, and research. Efforts have been made to cite all sources. To start, may we invite our co-founder, Ms. Stephanie Tomampos, to give some opening remarks. Steph?
Yes. Thank you, Tony. Good evening, everyone, and good noon from Munich here in Germany, and welcome. On behalf of the founders of the Philosophy of Photography Club, thank you all for joining us today. I'd like to also welcome and thank Parallax Photo Journal for their support in our initiative. It is wonderful to see some of you here today who share an interest or curiosity in photography, not simply as a medium for making images, but as a way of thinking about the world. So the Philosophy of Photography Club is an independent volunteer-driven initiative dedicated to not just about photography, but our critical inquiry into photography. And more of these later, perhaps with Tony and of course the whole discussion. However, our work is sustained entirely through the commitment, generosity, and shared stewardship of all of us founders and the participants, and especially our partners. One of the goals of this club is to create a space where photography can be approached with patience and curiosity like any other art. We want images not only to be viewed, but questioned and discussed together. So today's lecture reflects that spirit. And today's discussion centers around a remarkable photographer whose work continues to challenge many of what we do today with photography. So in a current era defined by constant image sharing, this photographer's devotion to photographing the world without seeking recognition offers a very compelling starting point for our reflection today and our discussion. So we're delighted to have one of our co-founders and our speaker today to guide us through questions and our discussion, our thoughts, drawing on philosophers such as Martin Heidegger, Simone Weil, and Roland Barthes to explore what our featured photographer, Vivian Maier, reveal about attention or the photography that it presents itself. And on behalf of everyone, thank you for all being here, and please join us today in welcoming our speaker, Tony.
Thank you. Thank you, Steph. So just to introduce ourselves before we go to our main program. So to introduce the Philosophy of Photography Club. So the Philosophy of Photography Club is a small reading and discussion group that explores photography as a multifaceted field. Our discussions aim to cover a broad range of contexts, which includes historical, political, cultural, scientific, and critical matrix of ideas, practices, and techniques that shape photography as a complex form. You can also read more about our concept paper through this website. And also for convenience, you may also scan our QR code. We also would like to recognize our partner for this project. So this series is supported by Parallax Photo Journal. We thank Mr. Tom White and Ms. Charlene Winfred for this opportunity to work together to promote photographic discourse in Southeast Asia. To know more about Parallax, please visit parallax.asia. We also look forward to sharing some details of the collaboration in the coming weeks. Yeah, that's the website of Parallax. Also, okay, now to move forward on our program. So there's something quite deceptive about the title of the series. The word everyday suggests familiarity, comfort, and even safety. Yet, as we contend, this embeddedness of photography in contemporary life and our passive, unreflective, and some would say consumeristic attitude towards it risk its most profound questions becoming invisible. This year, 2026, marks the 200th year of photography, or at least as it is declared by the French government. The Everyday Photography series is our attempt at articulating, in no comprehensive terms, some of those questions and issues about the medium. To borrow from Heidegger, so sorry for preempting Doc Barbaza, questioning builds a way. This is the club's gesture. This is the club's gesture of questioning photography, and thus a path into thinking photography qua photography. In our project rationale, we speak of post-photography, which we chiefly summarize provisionally as the condition of photography within a cultural landscape shaped by surveillance, technological simulations, a presumption of photography as language, and the centrality of capital. As such, a curious observer would find our topics of interest to be somewhat niche and yet paradoxically deeply referencing the everydayness of photography. What does it mean to celebrate the bicentennial of photography, but also at the same time be in a position or disposition of being post? When did it end? What is the after or beyond that post refers to? And interestingly enough, this also leads us to the question, was there ever a start to photography aside from its technical beginnings in 1826? Today's discussion is one of three sessions we have prepared so far, with two additional underway through our partner Parallax. The second and third discussion is the paradox of hypervisibility in the era of high-resolution imagery and the terminal image and the aesthetics of a kamikaze FPV drone image in warfare are scheduled for the third quarter of 2026. To begin the series, we are honored to have with us Dr. Remmon Barbaza, who will lead today's discussion, What Wounds Us, Vivian Maier through the lens of Simone Weil and Roland Barthes. Without further ado, please join me in welcoming Dr. Barbaza.
Thank you. Thank you, Tony. Thank you, Steph, for the introduction. Thank you, everyone, for joining us on a Saturday evening. I know that weekends are are spent in other better ways now. So we thank you for the company. I hope I can keep my what I want to share with you for just half an hour. So we have time for exchange. And the last time I think that what we had here was really quite engaging given the exchange now. So let me now share slides. Okay. Okay, so you can see it's working right now. Okay. Okay, so I wanted to this afternoon to not also for myself to make sense of someone who I'm sorry, I'm coming from some illness, so my my throat is still not fully well. Someone like Vivian Maier to me strikes me really as someone who is an enigma, no? And in the description of today's presentation, you might have read that Vivian Maier was discovered only long after her death. Well, not long after, but relatively. Her photographs were left undeveloped, thousands of them. And what was astonishing was that her work, I assume many of you have already seen some of her works, are really, really impressive. So, of course, the question that first comes to us is how can that how to make sense of that, right? Sorry, right now when I play my slides, I can't see my cursor, so I can't move there. Okay. The missing cursor. Okay, good. So, in this afternoon's presentation would be in three parts. No? So first, Vivian Maier, of course, and Through the Lens, as the title suggests, by Simone Weil, particularly her concept of attention. No? And then also Roland Barthes, about studium and punctum, but more specifically about what wounds us. That would be the punctum part. I'm I'm assuming also some of you may have already seen his text and may have already read this quite famous concepts of studium and punctum in Roland Barthes. Uh, so let's continue then. So we begin with the first part of Vivian Maier as an enigma. So this is a photograph of from the vivianmaier.com site itself, of the rolls of film that were really left completely undeveloped. And I don't know if you can, if you, I don't know if it strikes you the way it did to me, and it continues to do to me. Uh, I, I'm assuming we all share this tendency, right? To when we take photographs, we want people to see the photos we take, right? We post them, we share them with families, with friends, right? Whether we are overly exposed in social media or private, even the most private among us would still want our photos to be seen at least by our friends or our families, right? Or or even setting that aside, if you really, if someone really doesn't want anybody to see the photo, at least myself, right? But not even that, right? So it's isn't that astonishing? I mean, 150,000 to the figures between 150,000 to 200,000, right? Undeveloped, and how do we make sense of that right now? Um, Maybe for us to appreciate or to get a sense of how astonishing that is. Imagine ourselves taking photos between now and until the end of our lives, and we will never see the photos that we've taken, right? We just snap. We just Yeah, we just take a photo. We just click our phones, no, right, or the shutter release, but never get to see the image. No. Can you imagine that, right? No. And so I think this very astonishing event that was Vivian Maier. No. Of course, many questions are being forced upon us, but I'd like to focus on three questions now. So why take photographs now? Why take photographs? Again, given Vivian Maier, why take photographs if you're not gonna see them anyway? And related questions would be, what does it mean to take photographs now? If Simone Weil did not see the images that she had in mind, that she took themselves, and she did not see them, did she do photography? And of course, corollary to that, what does it mean to be a photographer? I don't know whether in other forms of art we can find something similar or imagine something similar, right? By virtue of the form of art, maybe that's not possible. For instance, in painting, if you're a painter and you're painting something, you're seeing it actually as it unfolds, right? So there's no, it's not possible not to see it. No. The only thing I don't know about musicians, maybe musicians, they can imagine musical composition scores in their minds and write it down as notes, but never get to hear it actually performed, right? That's I suppose that's imaginable, right? Or maybe in architecture, by virtue of its by its nature, right? We recall, for instance, that this year the famous Sagrada de Familia is well, I don't know what is considered complete, right? Now, on the is it the 100th and centennial of his death? But of course, he never gets to see it, right? No. But again, going back to Vivian Maier. No. If we imagine her um, in her lifetime with those thousands and thousands of images being taken almost on a daily basis. And if we read about her, it's we can see that her life revolved around photography, and that was her joy, right? And she arranged her life in such a way that she could do it. But not being able to see them. If you read the website, it says that, well, uh, to some extent, it can be explained by the financial situation of Vivian Maier. The developing became very expensive, prohibitive, so she wasn't able to do that. No, but I don't know. I don't know. What do you think? To me, uh, well, she was working as a nanny. I think even you would have probably saved. She could have saved maybe some amount, at least maybe, I don't know, 5, 10 rolls. Yeah, I think we all have that urge to see. I want to see what I just took, right? What photograph I thought I took, and I want to see it. But it seems that there was no compulsion. No? Vivian Maier was not compelled to do that. No? uh, and it seemed that she was just happy doing it, right? Um, so eh, Vivian Maier uh, challenges us to think, what does it mean to take photographs? No? That Does not seeing the images that you conceive in your mind diminish the experience of photography, or what is really photography. And and in answering those questions, I thought what came to my mind were two figures. All three happen to be French. No? And I'm sorry, I don't speak French. No? So I read the English translations. No? So the first one is Simone Weil, no? From the book, this book. So attente to do. The translation is waiting for God. So this is where we get the book, the text, and it's just a short text. The title is Reflections on the Right Use of School Studies with a View to the Love of God. Maybe too pious for comfort, and maybe a turn off for many. If you why read an essay entitled Reflections on the Right Use of School Studies with a View to the Love of God? But originally it was written for grade school girls in Paris. No, I think the principal perhaps was a good friend, a Catholic priest, who asked Simone Weil, "Can you write something for these girls?" And that's what she wrote. No, Reflections on the Right Use of School Studies with a View to the Love of God. This is a very short essay. But don't be deceived by the religious tone and context, because when I teach in the university, I use this in my philosophy courses, the first text in almost every undergraduate course, because I find this to be still the most beautiful, the most profound ever written on what it means to study. And I think study and photography, photography is a kind of study, right? We attend to the world around us, and the world teaches us. The photographer is a student, and is attentive, and listens and opens one's ears and eyes, to attend. So I find that to be analogous now. I'm sorry, the slides are not in correct order, but in Simone Weil, I wanted to focus on attention, and she says three things. Well, the main things that I want also to highlight here. First is the development of the faculty of attention is the sole and exclusive purpose of study. I've never seen anybody speak of studying this way. Uh, Whenever I ask my student, okay, why are you studying? Why are you, why all the trouble? No? And the most noble answer that students can give is that so that we can learn, so that we can attain wisdom, and so on and so forth. Which is not, of course, which is not wrong, right? No. But even that, no, the attainment of knowledge, one can say, is already noble. But Simone Weil goes beyond that and says, no, it's not gaining honors. It's not gaining knowledge. It's not academic success. The sole and exclusive purpose of study is the development of a faculty of attention. Not grades, not not honors. And whenever I discuss this with my students, I happen to sense, at least in my university, maybe this is a global thing, a growing, sense of obsession with grades, rather than the process itself of grappling with a problem, with a text, with a poem, with a mathematical formula, or what have you, right? And this is what Simone Weil is saying. And then she says that attention is not a muscular effort. It's not, grit your teeth kind of, you frown and it's not willpower. Rather, it's a negative effort. And it is through this negative effort that we in the end, we be gifted by the greatest treasure. So let's take a look at some of the. So this is the translation by Emma Crawford. Crawford, Reflections on the Right Use of School Studies with a View to the Love of God. So I am taking the passages from this edition. There are several different translations. And we find this passage: attention is an effort, the greatest of all efforts, perhaps, but it is a negative effort. So there seems to be there seems to be a paradox here. It is the greatest effort, or greatest in the sense of it is the most difficult, and yet it is something that is negative. So the statement has this formula: it is A but B. Meaning to say that in our minds the two should not go together. When it is the greatest effort, it's by negative here, I think, is meant like a movement, the direction of the movement. So a positive effort is something like an attack. When you say I attack a problem, that would be a positive effort, right? When you grapple, right? When we say, when we, even the language, when we say we grasp, all this are depict a positive effort. We often say that, how do we attack the problem? And that would be a positive effort. So a negative effort would mean the opposite. Instead of heading towards the object of study, I step back and I wait. That would be a negative effort. So Simone Weil says, attention consists of suspending our thought, leaving it detached, empty, and ready to be penetrated by the object. And I think if we recall again Vivian Maier, I think that was happening. She was not out there to capture, right? She was there to be surprised. She was there completely open, ready to be penetrated by the object, right? As in the words of Simone Weil. And that's where she found the joy, right? Not in the again, Simone Weil is saying, not in whatever it is that we intend to achieve in the end, but the very act of exercising the faculty of attention is itself already what constitutes joy, and in itself is the treasure that at the end of the text, Simone Weil would say that it is worth selling all our possessions just to attain this treasure. So again, she says, we do not obtain the most precious gifts by going in search of them, but by waiting for them. So again, the search, and like in military language, search and destroy, right? Um, um, we don't have to be believers in a Christian God, for instance. But even if we just know the story of the Annunciation, for instance, the narrative of the salvation, I keep going back to that encounter. Belief is not required to appreciate the scene. We can take it as a literary work, but the story is what's important. When in the story of the Annunciation, the angel announces to Mary. Mary was very young, that she's being as it were, conscripted for the salvation of the world. And that, if you're a young girl, that would be an overwhelming piece of news for you, right? Now, but then famously, what does she say? Behold, the handmaid of the Lord, let it be done to me according to your word. So I give that as an example of a negative effort. Let it be done to me. Now the agent is not me. But whatever it is that is happening is being done to me. I'm not the one doing it. Right? So to me that's a profound story of and an example, a very good example of negative effort. Now, and then I ask my students, okay, if Mary instead of negative effort she exercised positive effort, what could she have said instead of "Behold, the handmaid of the Lord, be done to me according to your word"? If it were positive, Mary would have said, like Nike, or let's do it, or come on, bring it on. And the story of the salvation of the world would have been completely different, right? So again, it's a question of in the event of art, be it music, photography, visual art, whatever other visual art. I think if you read biographies or autobiographies of artists, poets, then you would get a sense that that is what is happening. Now they don't produce it. No, it happens to them. No, and they're there to receive it. No. Um, and we go to the third part, Roland Barthes. Again, as I've said, the studium and punctum. This is from the Camera Lucida. Um, without going much into detail, just briefly, Roland Barthes is saying that in every photograph you will find a studium and a punctum, no? And at the risk of oversimplifying it, no? Let's just see some pages now. So this is from the chapter 10. This is from the Camera Lucida, where he begins to speak of the studium, right? So as you can see on the left part, page 26, somewhere in the middle, he says, it is studium, which doesn't mean at least not immediately study, but application to a thing, a taste for someone, a kind of general enthusiastic commitment. When you look at the photograph, you get interested in something, right? Let's say if we see an early photograph of Manila, old Manila, uh, depending on your taste. So studium, Roland Barthes says, that has to do with taste, also personal taste. Now, then you get, let's say, picture of Escolta, and you notice, wow, the fashion of that time. No? So that is studium. No? That there is material in the photograph that appeals to your taste. No? However, a punctum, if you look at the second part, the second one I shall therefore call punctum, for punctum is also sting, speck, cut, little. What pricks me, it says there. A photograph's punctum is that accident which pricks me, which wounds me, right? So one way of seeing the difference is, studium is also subjective because it has to do with your taste. We see different things from the same photograph, depending on your taste. But the difference is, if you look, let's say, if you notice the fashion of Filipinos in the early 20th century, let's say when the Escolta was at its peak, you can share that. No? Everyone can see that. But the punctum is yours and yours alone. No? So that, I think, that would be a key difference. No? The punctum is what wounds you, and that is, if studium is subjective, yes, but there's also some objectivity to it, because others can verify that, right? You can point. So studium is the like cultural or historical information that one gathers from a photograph. Whereas punctum is yours and yours alone. A photograph will prick, as in the translation that's used. I don't know what the the original French word was used. Now it's something that pricks, something that wounds you, that is yours and yours alone. So that would be a key difference now. So we don't, okay, since I said I want to keep it to half an hour. So here in chapter 19, the example, so let's read. The studium is clear. I am sympathetically interested as a docile cultural subject in what the photograph has to say, for it speaks. It utters respectability, family life. So he's using an example. You know? Conformism, Sunday best, an effort of social advancement in order to assume the white man's attributes. The spectacle interests me. You know, the whatever cultural or historical detail the photograph may show, it can be interesting, but it doesn't hit me. It doesn't prick me. So what does? Strange to say, is the belt worn low by the sister or daughter, the solacing mammy whose arms are crossed behind her back like a schoolgirl, and above all, her strap bumps. Why does this dated fashion touch me? No, that's you. That's the punctum of the photograph. No. Um, those of you who have read Roland Barthes would know that the camera lucida has to be read side by side with another book, which is Morning Diary. You know, that a day after the death of his mother, Roland Barthes wrote a diary, you know, and then sometimes several entries in a single day, you know. And I just picked this from October 30, you know, 1977. By the way, the camera lucida, almost half of it, or half or more than half of it, is like a meditation of a photograph of Roland Barthes' mother when the mother was still a young girl, no? And somehow that's the photograph that moved Roland Barthes, no? And now in the diary, you know, that helped Roland Barthes to deal, you know, to grieve, you know, to go through the process of grieving, you know? And here on October 30, he writes that this death fails to destroy me, you know. The death of his mother, you know, fails to destroy me altogether means that I want to live wildly, madly, and that therefore the fear of my own death is always there, you know, not displaced by a single inch. So there's no denial of death, no. But it's always there. And I think this is what is for us something to think about, you know? In a world that is accustomed to, you know, a postponement of what eventually will happen, right? And we you know, all sorts of products we have at this and, you know, age defying this, age defying that, right? Or what 60 is the new 40. I'm 61, so I hear that. uh um um this having to grapple with the fact of our mortality, you know, is something that we'd rather not do right now. But I think in Roland Barthes, no, the wound, no, the wound of looking at the photograph of his beloved mother, no, does not lead into a paralysis, does not lead into some, you know, endless spiraling down a hole of darkness. No. Instead, he says, I want to live, wildly, madly, and yeah. So it's half an hour now. So I wish to gradually wrap my little presentation so that again we can hear from each other. So if we go back to if we go back to my cursor again is not showing. Okay, continue to share, stop sharing. Okay. Okay, yeah, thank you. So if we go back to Vivian Maier, through the lens of Simone Weil and Roland Barthes, I think it can help us make sense. This is just a suggestion, but of course we will never know, right? We will never know the mind of Vivian Maier. No. But there are snippets. There are witnesses. The children that she took care of. Their observations. Their impressions of Vivian Maier. We can say a few things now that yeah, for one, as I've said earlier, that her life revolved around photography, and then she arranged her life, the physical space, in such a way that it will allow her to do the things that she loved, the thing that she loved the most, which is every day to take photographs. And she is fascinated. I think that's the studium part would be. She is fascinated by what whatever she sees on in everyday life, right? But at the same time, I think uh, recalling Roland Barthes, I think she also has a sense of, at the same time, the things do pass away, that you know that therefore there is a need for renunciation. No. And I don't know whether in our language, when we speak of photography, we say we capture, right? No, which would be probably something of a positive effort. No, we say we shoot. No, we take. No, and maybe if the example of Vivian Maier, with the help also of Simone Weil and Roland Barthes, maybe we can look at the experience or the act of photography as more of this negative effort of being astounded by what presents itself before me, and that I leave myself open. No? I'm not chasing after them. I'm not capturing them really, but I am there to receive. No? And in the end, I am enriched in doing so. And I don't know whether that was in the head of Vivian Maier, that's it's enough that I am able to do it. No, and therefore there is no compulsion. I need to have this process, these roles, and I want to see my photo. I want to see my work. It seems to be that didn't seem to be there. So yeah, I wanted to end on that note, and I'd like to hear from you. Yeah, thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Doc Barbaza. So speaking of attention, so um, Rochelle, one of our guests, Rochelle Flores, shared in the chat the original French of Bart's text. So both the first one is for Simone Weil, and the other one is for Bart's, I think. So Le Punctum, Tun Photo. So the floor is now open for questions or reactions for Doc Barbasa's presentation. Just also to recognize, we have a few guests in Facebook as well. So, um, so we have a question from Rochelle. Rochelle, it's okay if you wanna speak. You can use your microphone.
Good evening. Hi, sir. Yeah, I was really curious about studium and punctum. I kept on seeing these words being thrown out, but I didn't have the time to read them yet. And so, from what I got from the discussion, the studium and punctum primarily applies, I think, for the ones viewing the photograph. Is that right? Or did
Yeah,
Bart say something of anything else about?
yeah, it's the viewer. The viewer, because if you read the text, even the I'm sorry, even the studium is subjective. No? It initially because the word is Latin, right? Studium. Although it eventually it will mean study, but initially it is one's taste. No? When you look at a photograph, depending on your taste, you will be drawn towards a particular aspect of the photograph, right? In my example, if you look at 1950s, 60s Escolta, I think you will be attracted by the fashion, or how people really dressed really well that time, right? Uh, and but not everyone will be drawn towards that. So it's subjective, but it's something that you can share with other people. You can tell, can you look at the fashion? But the punctum, it's almost impossible to share to tell others. No, what pricks you, what wounds you, is something that is yours. And it's almost impossible to share that with others.
Last discussion, right? Uh, Thank you, Rochelle. So I think you also joined our last discussion, right? So you're a professor. Okay, so you teach math, as I remember, or computer vision. Yeah, yes, that was it. So nice to have you again. Math and computer vision, exactly. So yeah, and maybe also just to react to to that word puncturing. I think that's also a very graphic and also a very visceral kind of language. Of course, I'm not coming from the text itself, not directly from the text, but the way it's it's elaborated. It feels like there's an image of photography as a surface. So, and that kind of puncturing seems to be something that's I guess counterintuitive when it comes to photography, because most of us imagine photography as a surface. So I think it was Flusser. I think in Flusser, Flusser is also a philosopher of photography. He I think he phrased it like photography is a significant surface. So I think that's how he phrased it. So Wilhelm Plusser. And somehow this idea of photography being a surface, something like a plane, something like a mirage, two-dimensional mirage, seems to keep on recurring when you talk about photography in terms of how it represents the real world. And I think that puncturing is some way, or uh, is somewhat of a um something that makes it human, because to a certain extent the surface seems to be outside us. Okay, so it's not part of us. So the puncturing seems to be what makes the photograph, or at least the photographic image, human, because puncturing and it's like piercing, and also the pain, or maybe the attention that is derived from that puncturing, is something that draws us in. I think Doc Raymond also used that term. It draws us in. So from a surface, you either go outside of yourself or you get into a photograph. So well, that's just me trying to reinterpret that word punctum. It's not necessarily what Bart is saying, but I think that's just my reaction. No? Anyone else who wants to ask?
Maybe me, just
Yes.
kind of curiosity. It's basically the whole thought of the discussion, not just the philosophical part, but maybe if photography is fundamentally an act of seeing rather than an act of showing, so how does that change the way we look at or evaluate photographic practice these days? So how does it differ, especially now that everyone's taking photos and everything like that? So, Sir Remmon.
Yeah. Thank you, Steph, for that question. That is an important question because I've been mulling over that also for some time now. That in my own experience of my own amateurist experience of photography, um, the more I do it, the more I'm convinced that photography teaches us to see, and that if our engaging in photography does not lead to our being able to see the world as it is on its own terms,
Right.
as to use the Heideggerian formula of phenomenology, and to let what shows itself be seen from itself just as it shows itself from itself, then I think I'm not sure whether it's a good way to spend our energies in photography, if in the end we're not we don't see more, we don't see better, we don't learn how to see, but on the contrary, the opposite would be to, we close our eyes. No, right? It can happen, right? No. So
Mhm.
it's yeah, that's the way, and that's why I'd like to thank you, Steph, for that question. And the more and more I'm convinced that um if there's anything that photography teaches us, it teaches us to see.
Right.
I think before we say, first you have to see it and then you photograph it.
Mhm.
But I'm beginning to experience it. As I photograph, I learn to see because I'm
Mhm.
doing. So photography is the one that makes me see. I think I think Tom is
Yes,
also.
Tom. Yes, Tom.
Thank you, Steph, for the question. Yeah.
Hey, thank you, Raman, for that presentation there. I have a couple of things. As a photographer myself, I take many, many, many photographs
Mhm.
without the intention even of looking at them. Even digitally these days, I will constantly kind of photograph. I
Mhm.
tell myself as a practitioner that I am sketching, I'm practicing my craft, right? For when I have to actually do it as a job. So, I need to keep doing it, in order to kind of keep that thought going. So I'm, but then eventually I do take photographs with the intention of showing them to someone or of looking over them myself, despite a large percentage of them. Actually, don't have that intention to do. So I do find it curious in the story of Vivian Maier that she never really seemed to make much effort to try and do anything with the photographs once they were taken. Um, so the whole kind of conversation that we've had just now about this idea of, is it just this kind of desire to be attentive to the world? Was the camera just an excuse, if you like, for someone like Vivian Maier to just kind of give themselves a reason to go out into the world and be attentive, you know? Was that the primary motivation, and the camera was just a tool that enabled that? Maybe that's something. Maybe we'll never know, right? But I do have that kind of question.
Yeah.
And I also wonder, how that kind of plays in today, where, this desire to kind of document our lives and to document the
Mm,
things that
mm.
we see. And, obviously with digital tools and social media, we have become a culture of oversharing, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So, that may be some of the attraction around someone like Vivian Maier, is that she did not do that. And I wonder, would Vivian Maier have been a TikTok star if she was alive today? Would she have, had the ease of kind of sharing her work? Would that have changed? Would she have been posting on Instagram daily? I don't know, right? But I think that it's an interesting kind of thing, like that desire to document and that desire to be attentive in the
Yeah.
world, seems like quite fundamental. And it's just,
Yeah.
yeah, how these things play out with the lives that we have and the tools that we have is quite fascinating. So yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Tom. Yeah, you put it so well that to see photography as a kind of an excuse to go out there and see the world and document. Yeah, yeah. Speaking of documentation, and if you read the Vivian Maier website and the about part, and she was really interested also in documentation. So it wasn't just photography. She collected many things. But then again, what for? When we ask, right? And she really uh, guarded her privacy really, really well, and sometimes would even, many times would even change her name, right? So that when she registers or when she writes her name and in laundry shops, that it would be a different name because it seemed like she didn't want to be tracked, right? At that time, right? That's fascinating. I mean, these days that's quite understandable when we don't wish our phone numbers, email, because nothing is hidden anymore in this age. So we can understand that. But in her time, right? Why, why, where was it coming from, right? So yeah, she was also known to be uh, someone into documentation of everyday life. No, and it just happened. I think that photography was one of the was the major, you might say, tool for documentation. No? And accounts, when we read accounts, it really seemed that she was really, enjoying every bit of it. And in the words of Roland Barthes, she was living madly, wildly, and yet extremely privately.
Yeah, I think we often get quite wrapped up in the idea. I mean, again and again, the idea that the photograph is the point, right? The thing that you
Mm,
produce is the point, and we
mm,
sometimes forget that the object, right? The image is not the entire point of why we might photograph.
mm,
Um, and yeah, I mean, to think about the Roland Barthes thing, I think there was a question about, does it apply to the one viewing the photograph? And I think since Barthes is now taught in art schools, and in
mm,
is referred to in photography, I think photographers probably like try to consciously sometimes you know use this in their photography, right? So we
mm,
often talk about it in terms of the viewing, but I don't know. I wonder. I personally haven't heard a huge amount of conversations, except in workshops where you're kind of critiquing photographs and you're saying to the photographer, "Hey, so where's the punctum? What's the studium?" Right? So again, like how when we're out being attentive in the world, how much are we thinking of these things in terms of trying to put them into a photograph? I don't hear so much of that side of the discussion. It often seems to happen after the photograph is taken. You know, I think perhaps the one exception might be when you look at say like sports photographers, and they're like, look for the peak action,
Yeah,
and that's
yeah,
the
yeah. Yeah, 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 yeah.
so yeah, the language we use is quite interesting, and when we decide to apply, or like where in the process of making and
Mm,
critiquing,
mm,
we decide to apply
mm.
these concepts is quite fascinating.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But also, I think we can all see that no photograph ever remains the same for even for the same person looking at it. If you look, just an example of, if you look at your, let's say, high school photo with your high school classmates, if you look at it after graduating from college, that's a different experience. Then you look at it 20 years again after, again, it's like a different photograph, and it hits you differently each time, right? Or you are drawn to a new thing in the same photograph. So yeah, so the the photograph is never finished, no, as a document. No, it keeps revealing something. The famous Afghan girl, for instance, right? The way it was received, initially, and then later, and then there was controversy, and we don't know. The photograph has been taken, but it hits us differently each time, right? Yeah.
Anyone else? So that's also interesting, Tom. So just to react to what you're saying, so I think I'm curious also. How do you find the the discussion? Because for example, for Parallax, it's more on its special interest would be documentary photography. So how would it how does it contrast, but also maybe reflect the kind of discussion that we have when it comes to Vivian Maier? Because I guess we've framed the case of Vivian Maier as an enigma, because for documentary photographers or photographers in general, we think of us documenting the world. So in the case of Parallax, how much different or the same documentary photography, at least in your context, is Meyer's attitude toward.
I mean, I think the main thing is when you look at sort of documentary photography and photojournalism, the primary purpose is kind of public. You're making photographs with the idea that you are going to then use the photographs to communicate something, to have something in the world that is a catalyst for discussion, for conversation, for action. They're not. If you're a documentary photographer or a photojournalist, you're not meant to keep them private. So, the photograph is the point to a certain degree. But that doesn't mean that the act of being a photographer, the is any different from, say, what someone like Vivian Maier might have been doing. In order to be a good photographer, it requires that attention. I mean, I always sort of say that, if you're not exhausted after your photographing, then you have not really been working very hard. It should be tiring, it should be exhausting. It should demand a lot of you to be that attentive in the world, if you're going to try and kind of explore it and examine it carefully. So process wise, I think this kind of thing is really important. Um, but yeah, it's the idea is that then the photograph becomes a catalyst for conversation. It doesn't remain as a private document, uh, or in Vivian Maier's place, an unseen document.
That's an interesting distinction, I think, Tom. No, so I think for we rarely make a distinction on the public lives and the private lives of images or photographs. So and thank you for making that not necessarily not necessarily emphasizing the difference, but making that distinction that in certain practices, the image is the goal, and making it public is the goal. In the case of Meyer, it's more of the private life. So
And of course, you can do both. I can make as a photographer, I can make photographs that are there primarily to satisfy my own kind of curiosity in the world, and if they happen to then have something about them which could then be part of the public, then that's in some ways that's a bonus for me, right? Because I'm able to do something for myself and also for the purpose of what I want the photograph to do in the world. I think if you're an artist, perhaps you are allowed to put a lot more of your own personality into your work. As a photographer who's doing documentary and journalism, you're supposed to take a bit of a distance and put a bit of distance between you, and to be more, objective, for want of a better phrase. So it's, different levels of engagement in the making of the images, but the kind of the act of doing it and the process of doing it is very much overlapping, regardless of what the end result is, I think.
Doc, you wanna say something?
Yeah, yeah. Yeah. Speaking still of documentation, again, the enigma that was Vivian Maier. If it was important for her to document everyday life, you would have thought that she would have, okay, if she didn't want to have it shown in her lifetime, at least she would have done some effort, made some effort to make sure that they are protected, and that after her life, then it would be some. But I don't know whether there was an effort along that line. No? So that again, that that that's an makes her really an enigma, right? Because she was quite meticulous about collecting things, and then you ask what for. But we have Richelle again in the chat saying, "Yeah, you're right." No, I don't know if I'm embarrassing Richelle, but Richelle was used to be my student, so he remembers our our discussion many, well, not many, maybe 5, 8 years ago. So in the chat, Richelle says, I recall Weil saying, sorry, Vey, I'm pronouncing it as German, but she's French now. I recall Vey saying that joy is indispensable to study as breathing is to running. No? And by virtue of photography as study, perhaps Meyer takes photographs exactly because of that joy. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And we saw Barth also speaking of living wildly, madly. That's the joy in there. Yeah. Simone Weil said in that same essay that intelligence can only be led by desire. Intelligence can only be led by desire. You can't force it by sheer determination. Like, uh, you have to have that joy for it now. That you have a sense that this is living wildly, madly, in the words of Barthes. No? Which brings me back to the question: who is the photographer? No? And remember, Tony, we had the talk discussion on photography and arete. And
Yes.
then I was telling one of my friends who attended, and then she referred to me as a photographer. I said, no, I can't consider myself yet as a photographer. And then she said, what is that? That's of course you're a photographer. And then it made me think. So when can I call myself a photographer? Is it when 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 there's already an exhibit or you're already known? And then one day it hit me. You're a photographer if you're a photographer if almost every day, if not every day, you can get out without having a camera with you because you find joy in doing it. Whether you're known or not, that's not the main point. The main point is you're finding joy, and that makes you a photographer, you know. And I've seen that in the photographers I've known in the past recent months, that they can't imagine going out without a camera in there, yeah, with them. No? So yeah, this thank you, Richelle, for recalling that important part in Simone Weil. Intelligence can only be led by desire, and I suppose also in photography as an act of seeing is made possible by that joy. No? In And we saw that in Vivian Maier. No?
Yeah. I mean, and perhaps it's also, we find that so um, refreshing or surprising, or, we question it because, in the, forgive me, the capitalist culture that we have, it's like everything, if you are not commodifying the thing, then why are you doing it? You know, and, it's like, well, because I enjoy it, right? So, it's that sometimes there's probably an element of that in it. It's like, well, oh my God, like how could she never do anything with this? And it's like, well, there was no desire to commodify this thing, this act that she was doing. So, um, yeah, and I guess some people find that hard to believe, right?
Yeah. We think only of Vincent van Gogh, for instance, who had the least idea about commodifying his paintings, right?
And I think Doc remember I think we had some conversation also about uh I mean in relation to Heidegger, the idea of the world as something to capture, so something that
Mm,
stands as a resource to be captured or displayed.
mm,
So,
Yeah,
Vish-
yeah, yeah.
the idea of
Yeah,
Vishnu.
we take, we, I try to stop using the phrase, we take photographs,
Mm.
so it's like, try and reframe the relationship to the act, right?
Mm.
So maybe speaking also on behalf of the class, I think I have several students here in this session. So I think that's something that we also mentioned during class, that when you go through a program, specifically a bachelor's degree for photography, um, if we just see it from the perspective of a creative industry, there might be the risk of seeing photography as just taking and displaying and showing. But in some of our classes, we get reminded that maybe there's something more about photography other than that taking and capturing. So the language is also a bit telling in terms of how we relate with the world, that somehow the world is there, and it's a resource for us to capture. So and sometimes we have to see it like we have to see the world as something that's revealed to us. And I think this is partly your fault, Doc Raimondo. So I started speaking like this because
Mm.
of our conversation. So the world is the some we also have to see photography as the world revealing itself, or the world as revealed to us. So the world as revealed to us, and not something that we engineer and see and construct. Especially, I mean, understandably in a bachelor's degree in photography, a lot of the context given or the framing of photography is that we have subjects specifically to construct an image, or to make a concept real in an image. But we try to provide a space also to remind that photography is also as a disclosure. So to use your term, or to use Heidegger's term.
too much Heidegger in our heads.
Yeah. Oh. Anyone else? Well, we do have some audiences in Facebook. So for those who are watching through Facebook, so you can type in. Obviously, there's no audio for them to speak. But if you have questions or some reactions, just type it in the comment section, and then we'll read it for the group. So we're doing the program simultaneously in Zoom and also in Facebook. So we have some friends in Facebook watching. So sorry to put a spotlight on you guys. Yeah. We have some curators from I think Lopez Museum and some street photographers also watching us in Facebook. Anyone else? So I guess maybe to slowly add on to I mean to slowly conclude maybe our discussion. Um, we This is basically an illustration, or it reflects at least the kind of discussions that we have reflects a certain kind of mode of talking about photography that is relatively different from what we've been used to, no? So, and we're very thankful for everyone joining us this evening because usually when we have photography events, we seem to have this expectation that it's about shooting. So, uh, uh, to be fair, it's usually how we are taught what photography is it's basically us capturing the world. So as just to reiterate what I said a while ago. So and we appreciate that you took time over the weekend to join us in this discussion, and just to maybe give some idea also in our future discussion. So as you would have seen, the topics that we're going to have in the next quarter, in the third quarter of 2026. So you would see na it's not necessarily about photographing, or it seems to reflect a different kind of relationship with photography. So one is about a kamikaze drone. So the flavor of that discussion also would be a bit different. And the other discussion will be care of our co-founder Stephanie Tomampos, who specializes in geoscience. So Steph is a physicist. She's doing her doctorate in Munich. Is a physicist and scientist. So that's also going to be a different flavor to the kind of philosophical engagement with photography in the third quarter of this year. So, if we don't have questions anymore, so I will turn over the floor to... Okay, last call. No more questions, reactions. So if there's none, so I'll turn over the floor to our co-founder, again, Miss Stephanie Tumapos, for the closing remarks.
Thank you, Sir Tony and Doc Remmon, for of course having this discussion, and also to our partner Parallax with Tom, and to the rest of the participants watching and joining us in this conversation. So my closing would be more of how I'm putting analogy to, because we have this magnitude of photographs these days, and I'm looking into a different view as a scientist, that where we're in the age of, say, a lot of information. So we often assume that more information leads to greater understanding, just as we assume that more photographs lead to better seeing. Yet our experience suggests the opposite. When information becomes endless, we struggle to know what deserves our attention, right? So when images become endless, we stop looking. The problem is no longer access, but attention. So photography has always been associated with seeing, but today it is increasingly associated with showing. So we photograph to post to share, to circulate. And that's what information is right now, right? And we don't even know where to look. Google gives you millions of access, right? So Vivian Maier offers a striking counterexample in our context, what we have been discussing in the last hour and a half. Her practice reminds us that photography begins not with showing, but with seeing, with the patient act of attending to the world before thinking about an audience. Or maybe it's because just simply joy. We've been talking about it as well. Perhaps that is what our discussions are trying to recover. We are not here simply to exchange opinions or consume more images. We are here to practice attention, to dwell with a photograph long enough to reveal something that, might otherwise remain unnoticed. So I guess the challenge today is not that we have too few images, but that we have too little attention to give them. So these ideas in our club, in a way, resonate with what we have just discussed today. Simone Weil's concept of attention and Vivian Maier's practice. They also reflect our club's mission, creating space where photography is approached not as a content to consume, but as something to think with. So hopefully this discussion becomes an exercise for us to learn to see rather than simply to show. So thank you, everyone, and hope to see you next time because, of course, that's my talk. I will speak more on a scientific perspective. Just to give an extended background of myself from Sir Tony that I'm doing my PhD, I kind of paused it, but I'm working at the industry, looking at how Earth observation in general, like using satellite imagery, is used in environmental consciousness here in Europe. So my job right now is I'm managing bids for Earth observation projects across Europe. And it's such a very interesting topic, I would say. And I think Rochelle, one of our, because he's computer vision, that's part of the, I guess, conversations. But I'd like to give next time a conversation, not just philosophically, because that's not my field, but more of photography, connecting photography, satellite imagery, and information within that image to see, not to show, and how it's affecting how we see the world, not just in environment, but also what is happening right now, like war, like conflict, like refugee settlements and everything else. So I hope you'll be there. And Sir Tony, anything else you'd like to add before ending this discussion? You're muted.
Okay. So I'll defer to Doc for some final words. Do you have final words, Doc?
No final words, just a word of gratitude for joining all of us tonight. And I hope you have a wonderful weekend.
Okay. On behalf of the Philosophy of Photography Club and our partner Parallax Photo Journal, thank you once again for spending your evening with us. Have a wonderful night and see you in the next session.
Thank you, everyone. Bye
Thank you,
bye.
everyone. Good
Thank
night. Good
you.
night.
Thank you.
I'll stop recording.